Hey everybody, Rob Maurer here. Happy Friday. Today we are talking about a pretty big change to the EV tax credit in the United States for the Model 3. We've also got some pretty exciting updates on the Cybertruck, some castings being spotted at Giga Texas, a couple of other stories as well, but should be a pretty quick one today. All right, looking at the stock, really nice run has continued. Tesla up 3.1% today to close at $213.97, while the NASDAQ also with a strong day up 1.1%. So really nice to see that. If we look at the 1 month trend now, Tesla up about 33% over the last month. So the strength continues today to close out the week and to close out the last days here in May as we head into the last month of the second quarter. All right, so let's get into this update on the tax credit for the Model 3. As we can see on Tesla's site now, the $7,500 federal tax credit says it applies to all new Model 3 vehicles which qualify. So previously, as we know, this was $7,500 for a period of time there as Congress or whomever was still working out some of the details. I think the Department of Treasury or something like that, still working out some of the details. That got published, and that actually changed the standard range and long range Model 3 to reduce those credits to $3,750. And that's kind of what it's been. And now all of a sudden, it just seems to have updated to $7,500 for all vehicles, which now applies for, all the Model 3s below $55,000 as it says here, all the Model Ys below $80,000 as we have talked about before. So this is a pretty big change. That changes the starting price down to, around $32,000, $33,000 now for the Model 3, rear wheel drive standard range version. We've talked about some of the state credits recently, so anyone in Colorado potentially getting a phenomenal deal on a Tesla with these credits kind of stacking. So what's going on here? How did this change happen? Did Tesla kind of change the batteries around to, make it eligible from the ineligibility for the full credit that we had seen before? It's not clear, but right now it looks like there has not been a change. If we look at the spec sheet for the rear wheel drive version that Tesla has on their website, which they usually do a pretty good job of updating pretty quickly, the charging speed is still at 170 kilowatts here, as compared to obviously something like the performance vehicle, which is using the 2170s. That's going to get 250 kilowatts. So a little bit of a different chain, a little bit of a different number there, which we have seen before, which signifies that's probably a lithium iron phosphate pack, so probably still coming from China. And I don't know that any of these other numbers have changed. The weight sometimes can be a good indicator for us, but to me, it looks like these are all kind of the same numbers that we had seen before. And furthermore, if we look at inventory vehicles that would potentially be in the supply chain and theoretically could have been eligible for this earlier if the batteries were different, they're also showing a $7,500 federal tax credit here. Tesla's still saying all new Model 3 vehicles qualify for federal tax credit for eligible buyers. So you would think that if this is some sort of new battery, there'd maybe be a little bit of difference in the specs, whether that's range, charge rate, weight, something like that. Or you'd expect that these vehicles that maybe had the old battery that have been sitting here and saying that they're eligible for $3,750 credit, you would think that those would still be sort of in that same bucket. So whatever happens here, it seems like, Tesla's been able to negotiate or get some clarity on how the battery falls within sort of the requirements, which again are, certainly complicated. So I wouldn't be too surprised if that were the case. And now they've got that clarity and feel comfortable advertising this as the $7,500 credit. So that's kind of my best guess right now, but obviously the possibility does exist that, there's a new battery, but I think more the former is where I'm leaning at this early stage. Now, if we click into one of these vehicles, again, just to kind of confirm this, this is this, standard range here that's 90 miles on the odometer. I'm sure that a vehicle like this or this vehicle in particular was probably available yesterday too, again, in that old bucket. But you can see federal tax credit here on the order page for this vehicle listed at $7,500. So it looks like it's full credit, which means that Tesla kind of getting the best of both worlds here because they had that period where it was $7,500 credit, and then it was announced that that was going to be cut in half. So that kind of sparked some urgency to convert your order before that credit changes. And now it's back to being the full credit again. So that can reignite some demand, lower that entry point for those that are eligible for this credit on this vehicle. It put the Model 3 in a little bit of a tough spot, having to compete with the Model Y being eligible for the full credit and just the half credit on those lower price versions of the 3. So I'm glad to see that parity reached, and obviously this should be interesting to follow as we maybe move into a a Project Highland update for the Model 3. But if nothing else, in the interim period, makes it a little bit easier for Tesla to move through that inventory, and gets a great starting price for Tesla to potentially promote, as we've talked about. Tesla may be heading down that path a little bit more. So definitely excited to see that. On a similar note, China is apparently going to be extending purchase tax exemptions for new energy vehicles. So they've had various different credits going for EVs over different points in time. This is one that was extended toward, some credits expired at the end of 2022. This one was extended, and it looks like this is now going to be extended again, which has kind of been rumored for a while, but that is apparently the new development. So obviously purchase tax exemption there. I'm not sure exactly the tax rate, but if I recall correctly, it's somewhere in the 10% realm. So pretty significant updates if this does indeed come to fruition. So good to see that. And then next up, we've got some interesting footage from the Gigafactory at Texas from Joe Tegmeyer from his drone expeditions out there. We can see some new castings piling up, and this is not the first time that we've seen some interesting looking castings, maybe that look a little bit different from what we would see with the Model Y. And in this case, they look strongly to be Cybertruck castings. A couple of really close-up images here. I would draw attention to sort of this section. And if we look back to some of the leaked footage, or the leaked image, I guess, that we saw of the Cybertruck previously, you can kind of see what seems to be a very similar type of section right there as to what we've got here. And, if you look at the rest of it, kind of following pretty similar lines throughout. So as best we can tell, this seems to be a very close match for sort of this lower section of what seems to be the rear casting for the Cybertruck. So pretty exciting to see that. Again, we've seen castings piling up that were a little bit mysterious before, but this seems to be our best shot of them, our most significant confirmation that these would be Cybertruck castings, which I'm sure I don't need to tell anyone. It's exciting to see those start to pile up at Giga Texas. Hopefully suggests a lot of progress with how Tesla is coming along with ramping up and launching production of the Cybertruck. So really exciting to see that. And then the last couple of things for today and for the week, we've got a report here for Stellantis and GM today that they are going to have to pay they have paid, I guess, $363 million in fines for U.S. fuel economy, basically not getting up to those standards. And it was kind of interesting to see both of their responses. So, fines for this, sort of fuel economy stuff, nothing new. This isn't a sort of a Volkswagen Dieselgate situation. It's just not meeting the requirements from a miles per gallon perspective. So then they have to pay a penalty for that. So it's a little bit different, but I had to kind of chuckle at both of their responses. Stellantis said that this reflects on past performance recorded before the formation of Stellantis and is not indicative of the company's direction. So basically they acquired a couple of other brands to roll into the Stellantis name with Fiat Chrysler, obviously, and apparently that, absolves them of, obviously not what they're saying, it absolves them, but kind of interesting to say that, hey, that's not Stellantis when predominantly it is. And then GM, they said that, quote, "We work towards the goal of a zero emissions future. As we work towards the goal of a zero emissions future, we may use a combination of credits from prior model years, expected credits from future models, credits obtained from other manufacturers, and payment of civil penalties to comply with increasingly stringent CAFE regulations," end quote. So I just kind of had to chuckle that they threw in the payment of civil penalties as part of their strategy to comply with some of those regulations, which, it's chuckle worthy, but it does also kind of make sense. If you're going to have to pay more for credits from other automakers versus what you might have to pay for a civil penalty, then obviously just from a sort of ROI perspective on that payment, you'd probably opt for the civil penalty. So still, nonetheless, kind of a humorous response, I thought, from both of them on this topic. And then lastly for today, Tesla did a quick little video on the Model S Plaid track pack or track package, which you can see on their site. We're not going to go through too much of it, but just a quick little promotional video for that option, which you can check out in the link in the description. All right, that'll wrap it up for today and for the week. So as always, thank you for listening. Make sure you're subscribed and signed up for notifications. You can also find me on on Twitter at Tesla Podcast. And we'll see you on Monday for what I think will be the June 5th episode of Tesla Daily. Thank you.